The grand hall of the Galactic Council sparkled with crystalline chandeliers, their light reflecting off the polished surfaces of 1,000 different alien representatives. Dr. James Walker stood at the center of it all, his simple black suit making him look plain compared to the exotic beings surrounding him. He took a deep breath, adjusting the small device in his hands, Earth's latest breakthrough in space travel technology. The council members towered above him on their floating platforms, their expressions ranging from bored to amused. "And you claim this device will revolutionize space travel?" The head counselor's voice boomed through the chamber. His blue, translucent form shifted in what appeared to be barely contained laughter. "Yes," Walker replied firmly. "Our calculations show it can bend space-time in ways your current drives cannot." He held up the prototype, its silver surface catching the light. The laughter started slowly. First, a chuckle from the serpentine delegate to his left. Then a harsh bark of amusement from the crystalline being to his right. Within moments, the entire chamber erupted in thunderous laughter. "Humans," the head counselor wheezed between fits of laughter, still trying to understand space travel with their primitive three-dimensional minds. "How entertaining." Walker's face reddened, but he stood his ground. 20 years of research, countless sleepless nights, and breakthrough after breakthrough had led to this moment. He wouldn't let their mockery shake his confidence. "Our understanding of physics," he began, but was cut off by more laughter. "Your species barely left their solar system 50 years ago." A delegate shaped like a floating cloud of golden dust interrupted. "And now you presume to lecture us on physics." Walker clutched his prototype tighter. They couldn't see it, but inside the device lay the key to something far beyond their understanding, something that would change everything. The head counselor raised a limb for silence. "Dr. Walker, while we appreciate Earth's enthusiasm, perhaps you should focus on more achievable goals. Your species still hasn't mastered basic fifth-dimensional travel. Leave the advanced physics to those who've spent millennia studying it." Back in his temporary quarters at the Galactic Embassy, Walker sat at his desk, his rejected prototype beside him. He opened his secure communication link to Earth. "They rejected it, just as we expected." He spoke quietly into the device. "They're completely blind to the possibility." General Roberts' gruff voice came through clearly. "Did they scan the prototype?" "No." Walker allowed himself a small smile. "They were too busy laughing to bother, just like our predictions suggested." "Perfect." The general's satisfaction was evident. "Return to base immediately. Project Infinity is ready for the next phase." Later that night, as Walker packed his belongings, he received an unexpected visitor. An alien janitor, one of the few service workers in the embassy, entered his room. "Such arrogance up there," the janitor said, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "They forget that their own ancestors once stumbled through the stars like children." Walker studied the alien carefully. "You don't share their view." "I've watched many species rise and fall," the janitor replied, cleaning the windows with methodical precision. "The ones who laugh loudest often learn the hardest lessons." He paused, all 4 eyes focusing on Walker. "Whatever you're planning, Doctor, be careful. The Council's arrogance is matched only by their fear of change." Walker nodded thoughtfully. As he watched the janitor leave, his hand brushed against the prototype in his pocket. If only they knew that this primitive device was just a decoy, a simple distraction from what was really happening back on Earth. In his mind, he pictured the real Project Infinity, hidden deep beneath the Antarctic ice. The massive facility where humanity's true breakthrough was taking shape. The project that would force the galaxy to stop laughing and start paying attention. As his ship departed the next morning, Walker looked back at the gleaming spires of the Galactic Council headquarters. Soon, very soon, they would learn that humanity's understanding of physics went far beyond what they could imagine. And by then, their laughter would have long since died in their throats. 3 miles beneath the Antarctic ice, Project Infinity hummed with activity. Dr. Walker stepped out of the elevator into the massive underground facility, brushing snow from his coat. The warm lights reflected off the polished steel walls, creating an almost daylight-like brightness despite being deep underground. "Welcome back, Doctor," the base AI announced. "The test chamber is ready for today's experiment." Walker nodded, walking past rows of busy scientists and engineers. Their underground base was humanity's best-kept secret, a place where the impossible became possible. Screens lined the walls, showing complex equations and diagrams that would have made the Galactic Council's finest mathematicians scratch their heads in confusion. He entered the main control room, where Captain Anna Reeves stood watching the massive test chamber through reinforced windows. The chamber held their greatest achievement, a prototype engine that didn't just bend space. It twisted it through dimensions the aliens didn't even know existed. "How was your trip to the Council?" Anna asked, not taking her eyes off the engine. Its surface seemed to shift and change, as if it couldn't decide which dimension it wanted to exist in. "They laughed, just as planned," Walker replied, joining her at the window. "They think we're still playing with toys while they master the universe." He smiled. They didn't even bother to look closely at the decoy device. The door hissed open behind them as Chief Engineer Michael Stone rushed in, his tablet displaying the stream of new data. "You're just in time, Doc. The engine's ready for the next test. We've solved the power containment issues from last week." Walker turned to the row of technicians at their stations. "Begin test sequence 47. The engine in the chamber began to glow, first with a soft blue light that quickly shifted through colors humans had no names for. The air around it seemed to fold and unfold like paper, creating patterns that hurt the eyes if you looked at them too long. "Seven-dimensional field is stable," one technician called out. "Power output at 15% and climbing." Stone studied his readings with growing excitement. "It's working. The energy patterns are exactly what we predicted. We're actually touching the seventh dimension." The room fell silent as they watched their creation defy everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about physics. In the chamber, small objects began to float, existing in multiple places at once as the engine bent reality around them. "Power at 30%, the technician announced. "Field stability holding." Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the control room as emergency systems activated. "We've got a power spike," Stone shouted, his fingers flying over his controls. "The field is expanding faster than predicted." Walker leaned forward, but instead of showing concern, he smiled. "Don't correct it. Let it happen." "But sir," Stone started to protest. "Trust me," Walker said calmly. "Watch." The engine's glow intensified, and for a moment, everyone in the control room existed in 7 dimensions at once. It felt like being everywhere and nowhere, seeing everything and nothing. Then, as quickly as it started, the effect faded. "Power levels, normal," Stone said in disbelief, checking and rechecking his readings. "The field stabilized itself, but that's impossible." Walker turned to Captain Reed, who had watched the entire event without flinching. "Still willing to pilot the real thing when it's ready." She grinned. "Try and stop me. The aliens think they know everything about space travel. Wait until they see what this can do." Later that evening, as the facility shifted to night crew, Walker sat in his office reviewing the test data. A message flashed on his screen. Urgent communication from their orbital sensors. "Doctor," the base AI announced, "we've detected multiple ships entering the solar system. Alien vessels, Council design." Walker stood up, straightening his lab coat. They had expected this, but not so soon. The Council must have noticed something they weren't supposed to see. He pressed the facility-wide communication button. "All personnel, begin final assembly protocol. Our visitors are arriving early." As klaxons sounded throughout the base, Walker watched the engine through his office window. Soon, very soon, the Council would learn just how wrong they were about humanity's potential. And this time, no one would be laughing. The massive underground hangar buzzed with activity as workers swarmed around humanity's greatest achievement. The HMS Transcendence. The ship looked wrong to human eyes. Its shape seemed to change depending on where you stood, and parts of it appeared to exist in places they couldn't possibly be. Dr. Walker stood on the observation deck with Captain Reed and Chief Engineer Stone, watching the final assembly teams at work. The ship's hull gleamed under the bright lights, its surface rippling like water whenever the 7D drive pulsed during testing. "Beautiful, isn't she?" Captain Reed whispered, her eyes fixed on her future command. "Hard to believe we built something that breaks the laws of physics." Stone chuckled, checking readings on his tablet. "We didn't break the laws of physics, Captain. We just found out the aliens were reading the wrong rulebook." A young technician ran up to them, his face flushed with excitement. "Dr. Walker, the final power tests are complete. All systems are showing green." Walker nodded, his eyes never leaving the ship. "Begin crew boarding procedures." "How long until the alien fleet reaches Earth?" 6 hours, the technician replied. "They're moving faster than we expected." The 3 leaders headed down to the main deck, where the chosen crew members were gathering. Each had been specially selected: pilots who could think in multiple dimensions, engineers who could understand impossible mathematics, and scientists who could see beyond normal space. Captain Reed addressed her crew, standing tall despite the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "You've all trained for this moment. The aliens think they know everything about space travel. Today, we proved them wrong." The crew began boarding procedures while Walker and Stone did final checks. The ship's main chamber was unlike anything in human or alien design. Instead of normal controls, the bridge seemed to shift and move, adapting to the crew's needs. "Remember," Stone instructed the engineering team, "the ship doesn't just move through space. It exists in 7 dimensions at once. Your job is to keep it stable in all of them." Walker watched as Captain Reed took her place in the command chair. The seat adjusted itself, wrapping around her like a living thing. Screens appeared and disappeared around her, showing views from dimensions humans weren't meant to see. "Power systems online," one engineer called out. "7-dimensional drives spooling up," another reported. Stone rushed over to Walker, showing him urgent readings on his tablet. "The alien fleet just changed course. They're heading straight for Antarctica. They must have detected our power signature." Walker smiled calmly. "Good. Let them come. Captain Reed, are you ready?" Reed's hands moved across controls that seemed to float in the air. "Born ready, Doctor. All stations report ready for dimensional shift." The massive hangar doors above them began to open, revealing the Antarctic sky. Snow fell into the chamber, evaporating before it could reach the ship's strange hull. "Alien fleet entering atmosphere," a sensor operator shouted. "Multiple ships on intercept course." "Perfect timing," Walker said. He turned to Captain Reed. "Show them what humanity can do." Reed nodded, her fingers dancing across impossible controls. "Engaging 7D drive. All crew, prepare for dimensional shift." The ship hummed to life, its engine core pulsing with colors that shouldn't exist. The air around the Transcendence began to fold, creating patterns that made the maintenance crews look away to avoid headaches. "Drive at full power," Stone reported. "Field stability at 100%. We're ready." Through the open hangar doors, they could see the alien ships approaching. Sleek, advanced vessels that had once seemed impossibly advanced to humanity. Now they looked almost primitive in comparison to the Transcendence. "Take us up, Captain," Walker ordered. "Let's give our friends from the Council a proper welcome." The Transcendence rose from its cradle, hovering in ways that defied normal physics. Parts of it seemed to arrive in the sky before leaving the ground, while other sections existed in multiple places at once. As the ship ascended into the Antarctic sky, Walker thought about the Council's laughter during his presentation. Soon, they would understand just how far humanity had come. The HMS Transcendence wasn't just a ship, it was humanity's proof that the impossible was only impossible until someone clever enough came along. The alien fleet grew larger in their view screens, weapons charging. But everyone on the bridge of the Transcendence wore the same confident smile. The real test was about to begin. The Antarctic sky burned with the engines of 30 alien warships. Their massive forms blocked out the sun, casting dark shadows over the ice below. Inside the HMS Transcendence, the crew watched silently as the alien fleet surrounded them. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Captain Reed nodded. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing the familiar blue form of the head counselor. His expression had changed since their last meeting. No trace of laughter remained in his glowing eyes. Humans, his voice boomed through the bridge. You have violated galactic law by developing unauthorized dimensional technology. Power down your vessel immediately and prepare to be boarded. Thomas Gray, the ship's diplomatic officer, stepped forward. Counselor, we're happy to discuss this matter peacefully. There's no need for threats. The time for discussion has passed, the counselor snapped. Your species has proven itself too dangerous to be left unsupervised. Submit now, or we will be forced to take action. Dr. Walker moved to stand beside Captain Reed. Interesting how quickly they went from laughing at us to fearing us, he whispered. The alien ships moved closer, their weapons ports opening. Energy readings spiked across the Transcendence's sensors. They're charging weapons, Stone reported from his engineering station. All ships have us targeted. Gray made one last attempt at diplomacy. Counselor, please. We've broken no laws. The treaties only restrict development of known dimensional technologies. Ours is completely new. Silence, the counselor roared. You were warned not to meddle in physics beyond your understanding. Now you will face the consequences. All ships, prepare to fire. Captain Reed's hands tightened on her controls. Orders, Dr. Walker. Walker looked at the alien fleet, then at his crew. Every human on the bridge stood ready, unafraid despite being outnumbered 30-1. Show them what 7 dimensions can do, Captain. Gladly. Reed's fingers danced across her impossible controls. All hands, prepare for dimensional shift. Mr. Stone, bring the 7D drive to full power. The alien ships fired first. Beams of energy lanced out from multiple vessels, all aimed at the Transcendence's heart. But something strange happened when they reached the ship's hull. Would you look at that? Stone said with a grin. Their weapons are passing right through us. We're shifting between dimensions faster than their energy beams can adjust. On the main screen, the head counselor's face showed pure shock. Impossible. No ship can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Impossible for you, maybe, Walker replied calmly. You've been trapped thinking in 5 dimensions for so long, you forgot to look higher. More alien ships opened fire, their weapons becoming more desperate. Some tried to launch boarding pods, others attempted to create dimensional nets. Nothing worked. The Transcendence simply existed somewhere else each time they attacked. They're trying to surround us in 5-dimensional space, Reed reported. Should we show them what else we can do? Walker nodded. Time for a demonstration. Mr. Stone, prepare the infinity fold maneuver. The engineer's eyes widened. Sir, we've only tested that in simulations. The power requirements will be perfectly manageable. Walker finished. Trust the math, Mr. Stone. The alien fleet continued their barrage, still failing to land a single hit. On screen, the head counselor was shouting orders, his composed demeanor completely shattered. Infinity fold ready, Stone announced. On your command, Captain. Reed took a deep breath. Let's make history. Engaging infinity fold in 3, 2, 1. The Transcendence's engine core pulsed with impossible colors. For a moment, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the ship did something that made the aliens' weapons look like children's toys. It folded space itself. The universe around them rippled like paper being creased. The Transcendence appeared to be everywhere and nowhere at once, existing in patterns that made the alien sensors overload and shut down. On the main screen, The head counselor's image flickered as his ship's systems struggled to comprehend what they were seeing. His final words before the transmission cut out were barely a whisper. "What have you done?" The real show was about to begin. The Antarctic sky warped and twisted as the HMS Transcendence executed its infinity fold maneuver. The alien fleet's formation broke apart in confusion as their sensors tried and failed to track a ship that existed in 7 dimensions at once. "Status report," Captain Reed called out, her hand steady on the impossible controls. Chief Engineer Stone checked his readings with a mix of awe and pride. 7-dimensional drag operating at peak efficiency. We're successfully existing in all 7 dimensions simultaneously. The view screen showed chaos among the alien fleet. Some ships fired blindly into space, their weapons passing harmlessly through areas where the Transcendence seemed to be but wasn't. Other vessels tried to retreat, only to find themselves somehow facing the wrong direction. "It's like they're trying to catch smoke with their hands," Dr. Walker observed, watching the aliens' futile attempts to target them. A junior officer spoke up from his station. "Sir, we're picking up their communications. They're panicking." Through the ship's advanced sensors, they could hear fragments of alien transmissions. "Cannot lock target. It's everywhere at once. Our weapons have no effect." "By the stars, what is this technology?" Captain Reed smiled. "Time to show them what this ship can really do." "Mr. Stone, initiate attack pattern Omega." The Transcendence moved in ways that defied normal space. It appeared to split into multiple copies, each one as real as the others. When alien ships fired at one copy, their weapons passed through empty space, while the real ship struck from another dimension. "Ma'am," the tactical officer reported, "their shields are useless against our 7-dimensional approach. We can pass right through their defenses as if they weren't there." Walker nodded. "Of course. Their shields only work in 5 dimensions. They might as well be trying to stop a ghost with a net." The Transcendence danced through the alien fleet, demonstrating its superiority without firing a single shot. When ships tried to flee, they found the human vessels somehow ahead of them. When they tried to fight, their weapons struck nothing but empty space. "Look at their formation," Reed pointed out. "They're breaking apart." The once proud alien fleet was indeed falling into disarray. Ships bumped into each other as their normal navigation systems failed to cope with the dimensional distortions the Transcendence was creating. Stone's console lit up with new readings. "Captain, they're powering up their dimensional drives. Looks like they're trying to escape through 5th-dimensional space." "Not so fast," Reed replied. She moved her hands in a complex pattern, and the Transcendence responded instantly. "Let's show them why that won't work." The human ship performed what the crew had dubbed the Mobius maneuver. It curved space itself into an impossible loop, trapping the alien fleet in a bubble of normal spacetime. No matter which direction they tried to flee, they found themselves turning back toward the center of the formation. "Message from a head counselor's ship," the communications officer announced. They're requesting a ceasefire." Walker stepped forward. "Put them through." The main screen showed the head counselor, his blue form noticeably paler than before. Gone was all trace of superiority or contempt. His voice trembled as he spoke. What are you?" "We're human," Walker replied simply. "The same humans you laughed at. The same humans you dismissed as primitive. The same humans who looked at your 5-dimensional physics and asked, 'What if there's more?'" The alien leader seemed to shrink in his chair. "The Council will need to reassess its position regarding humanity's status in the galaxy." "I should think so," Walker agreed. "Shall we discuss terms?" As the diplomatic talks began, Captain Reed ordered the Transcendence to power down its attack posture but maintain the 7-dimensional field. The crew watched in satisfaction as the mighty alien fleet hung helpless in space, trapped by physics they couldn't understand. "Hard to believe they were laughing at us just days ago," Stone remarked, checking the engine readings one more time. Walker smiled, remembering the mockery in the council chamber. "The best jokes, Mr. Stone, are the ones where the audience doesn't realize they're the punchline until it's too late. Above the Antarctic ice, the HMS Transcendence continued its impossible existence, a testament to human ingenuity and a reminder that the galaxy's oldest species didn't have all the answers after all. The Grand Council chamber felt different now. Where once there had been mocking laughter, now there was only stunned silence. Dr. Walker stood again at the center, but this time Captain Reed and Chief Engineer Stone flanked him. Through the massive windows behind the council seats, the HMS Transcendence floated in seven-dimensional glory, impossible to ignore. Let me understand this correctly. The head counselor spoke, his voice having lost all its previous arrogance. Your species not only discovered the seventh dimension, but found a way to exist within it. And the sixth dimension. Stone added helpfully. We needed to master that one first to reach the seventh. A ripple of murmurs spread through the gathered alien representatives. Many kept glancing nervously at the Transcendence outside, its form shifting and flickering as it demonstrated humanity's mastery over dimensions they hadn't even known existed. Impossible, muttered one of the senior scientists in the council. The energy requirements alone ruled. Walker pulled out a small device, similar to the one he'd shown them before. You mean this kind of energy requirement? He activated it, and suddenly the device existed in multiple dimensions at once. The alien scientist fell silent, his multiple eyes widening in shock. We're not here to brag, Captain Reed stated firmly. We're here to establish new diplomatic relations. As equals. The head counselor shifted uncomfortably in his floating chair. The council needs time to assess this situation. Such technology in the hands of a young species. The same young species you laughed at, Walker interrupted politely. The same primitives you dismissed. He paused, letting his words sink in. We didn't come to ask for permission. We came to inform you of the new reality. Outside, the Transcendence performed another infinity fold, causing several council members to flinch as space itself seemed to ripple. Stone checked his tablet and grinned. Our sensors show at least 15 different species are already sending requests to study our technology, he reported. Walker nodded. And they're welcome to study it, under proper supervision. Unlike some, we don't believe in hoarding knowledge. The council chamber erupted in chaos as representatives argued among themselves. Some demanded immediate action against Earth, while others called for peaceful cooperation. The head counselor raised his arms for silence. What are your terms? He asked finally. Walker stepped forward. First, Earth will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and privileges. Second, we will establish a new division of dimensional physics, sharing our discoveries with those willing to learn. Third, he smiled, you will apologize for laughing. This is outrageous, one delegate shouted. You can't simply. The delegate's words cut off as the Transcendence outside performed another maneuver, briefly existing in all 7 dimensions at once. The sight made several council members clutch their heads in discomfort. I believe, the head counselor said carefully, that we can agree to these terms. As the council members began drafting the official agreements, Walker turned to his companions. Not bad for a primitive species, wouldn't you say? Reed smiled. I particularly enjoyed their faces when we demonstrated the Mobius maneuver during the fleet inspection. Speaking of which, Stone checked his tablet again. We're getting hundreds of requests from alien scientists asking to study our engine design. Walker looked around the chamber at the alien representatives who now watched humanity with a mixture of fear and respect. Tell them we'll be happy to teach them. Starting with basic 6th-dimensional physics, of course. We wouldn't want to overwhelm them. The head counselor floated down to their level, his pride visibly wounded but his diplomacy intact. We may have underestimated humanity's potential. A common mistake, Walker replied kindly. But an educational one, wouldn't you agree? Outside, the Transcendence continued its silent display of power, a reminder to all that the galaxy's balance had shifted. Humanity had not just joined the galactic community. They had revolutionized it. As the formal ceremonies began, Walker couldn't help but smile. Sometimes, the best way to handle mockery was to prove them wrong in such a spectacular way that they'd never dare laugh again. 1 year after the Transcendence's demonstration, Earth had changed beyond recognition. Massive space elevators reached into the sky from every continent, their impossible structures held stable by 7-dimensional anchor points. Ships of all species filled Earth's orbit, coming to learn from the species that had revolutionized space travel. Dr. Walker stood in his new office at the Global Academy of Higher Dimensional Physics, watching alien students mix with human teachers in the courtyard below. The building itself was a marvel, parts of it existing in multiple dimensions at once, making it appear like an ever-changing piece of art. "Ready for the ceremony, Doctor?" Captain Reed, now Fleet Commander Reed, asked as she entered his office. Her uniform now bore the insignia of the Multi-Dimensional Defense Force, humanity's new space fleet. "Almost," Walker replied, adjusting his formal clothes. "Hard to believe it's only been a year since they were laughing at us in the council chamber." The ceremony they were preparing for would mark the launch of humanity's 10th 7-dimensional vessel. The HMS Explorer would join the growing fleet of human ships that patrolled and studied the galaxy. But unlike the early days, this ship's crew would include alien officers learning from human experts. Chief Engineer Stone burst into the office, excitement clear on his face. "You need to see this. The alien engineering students just successfully activated their first 7-dimensional power core." Walker smiled. "Ahead of schedule. They're learning faster than we expected." "Turns out," Reed commented, "when you stop laughing at someone's ideas and actually listen, amazing things can happen." They made their way to the launch platform where the Explorer waited. The ship's sleek form shifted through multiple dimensions, a sight that no longer caused headaches among the watching crowds. Aliens and humans alike had adapted to seeing beyond normal space. The head counselor himself had come for the ceremony. He stood straighter now when addressing humans, no trace of his former condescension remaining. "In just 1 year," he announced to the gathered crowd, "humanity has shared knowledge that will advance our understanding of the universe by millennia. They have proven that age does not equal wisdom, and that sometimes the youngest among us can be the greatest teachers." Walker took the podium next. "A year ago, we showed you that the impossible was possible. Today, we're not just launching a ship. We're launching a new era of cooperation. The Explorer's mission isn't just to study space. It's to prove that we're all stronger when we work together." The crowd cheered, a strange mix of human voices and alien sounds that somehow worked perfectly together. The Explorer's crew stood at attention, their uniforms showing both their home species symbols and the new 7-dimensional fleet insignia. "Commander Reed," Walker called out, "your ship awaits." Reed stepped forward, now the Explorer's commanding officer. "Thank you, Doctor. We won't let you down." She turned to her mixed crew. "All hands, boarding positions." As the crew boarded, Stone approached Walker with his tablet. "Latest reports from the dimensional research teams. 3 more species have successfully developed their own 7-dimensional technology under our guidance. The galaxy is changing, sir. For the better," Walker added, watching as the Explorer prepared for launch. The ship's engine core powered up, its 7-dimensional field spreading out like ripples in a pond. The assembled crowd watched in appreciation, no longer afraid of the strange physics at work. "Launch sequence initiated." Reed's voice came through the speakers, all systems showing green across 7 dimensions. The Explorer rose majestically from its cradle, its form seeming to dance between dimensions. As it climbed higher, Walker thought about how far it had come. From being laughed at in the council chamber to teaching the galaxy's oldest species new tricks. "Beautiful sight, isn't it?" the head counselor said, standing beside Walker. "I must admit, I never thought I'd see my own people learning from humans. We were so certain we knew everything." Walker watched as the Explorer disappeared into a 7-dimensional fold, heading out to explore parts of the galaxy that no one had been able to reach before. "That's the wonderful thing about science," he replied. "There's always more to learn, always another dimension to explore." He paused, allowing himself a small smile. And sometimes the best discoveries come right after someone stops laughing and starts listening. Above them, the stars seemed brighter somehow, as if they too were ready for humanity's next impossible achievement.